They weren't just building cars. They were crafting legends in a dusty little shop tucked away in Nova Scotia. A man named Chad Hiltz was bending metal, breaking rules, and somehow breaking into the hearts of millions. With nothing but raw talent, a blowtorch, and a wild imagination, he turned rusted-out relics into rolling pieces of art. Bad Chad Customs wasn't just another car show. It was chaos. It was magic. It was real. Grease under their nails, sparks flying through the air. Chad and his partner Jolene McIntyre didn't just restore old vehicles, they resurrected them. With every custom build, they weren't chasing fame. They were chasing freedom. And fans around the world followed them like disciples. But somewhere in the shadows, behind every engine, roar, and triumphant reveal, a tragedy was silently creeping. A tragedy that wouldn't just end the show. It would break a dream, shatter a legacy, and silence the roar of Bad Chad Customs' dash forever. Before the heartbreak, there was the rise. And it was explosive. From a small-town shop to global TV screens, Chad Hiltz made something out of nothing. Born and raised in the rural backroads of Nova Scotia, he didn't have million-dollar tools or big sponsors. What he had was vision. Where others saw scrap, he saw story. A decaying '69 Camaro wasn't just a car. To Chad, it was a second chance, a revival. He didn't chase perfection. He chased soul. And that's what got Discovery Channel's attention. Cameras rolled on what would become one of the most unique and beloved automotive shows in recent memory. The series didn't look like anything else on TV. No glamorous garages, no polished celebrity hosts. Just a guy with welding goggles, a woman with fire in her eyes, and a dream fueled by gasoline and grit. Each build on Bad Chad Customs was a gamble, no safety net, no big budget. Just blood, sweat, and a timeline. And viewers loved it. They weren't just watching cars get transformed. They were watching stories come alive. Rusted pickups with a forgotten past. Muscle cars abandoned. In barns. Every project carried history on motion, but it was Chad himself that pulled people in, rough around the edges. Bursting with creativity and totally unpredictable. Bad Chad wasn't just a nickname. It was a warning label. He didn't follow rules. He made new ones. And somehow, that rebellious spark became the heart of a global fan base. Next to him, always dashed Jolene, more than a partner. More than a co-star, she was the balance to his chaos. The engine behind the engine. Together, they built more than cars. They built trust. A bond that viewers could feel through the screen. And just like that, a cult show was born. But not every fire keeps burning. And the one behind Bad Chad Customs was about to get extinguished in the early days. No one expected a show like this to explode. No glitz, no glamour, no celebrity cameos. Just a small town. Shop on Highway 358, hammering out dreams in the cold Nova Scotian air. But somehow, it clicked. Fans around the world tuned in religiously. They didn't just want to see the cars, they wanted to see him. The guy with the mohawk, the tattoos, and the wild ideas that made no sense. Until they did, Chad didn't chase validation. He chased vision, and viewers saw it, felt it. He'd weld a bumper in the morning, sketch a fender from scrap metal in the afternoon, and then deliver a final reveal that looked like it belonged in a museum. And Jolene, she was the glue, the quiet force, the co-creator. She managed the chaos, the schedules, the dreams. The chemistry between them wasn't scripted, it was lived. And that's what made the show feel real. They weren't building for TV. They were building for love, for the craft, for each other. And for every beat-up shell of a car that rolled through that garage, one episode at a time, they stitched together a tapestry of emotion and steel. The audience wasn't just Watching mechanics work, they were witnessing a relationship grow, evolve, and fight its way through every challenge. And the builds. They were unlike anything else on television. Not showroom, perfect, not cookie cutter, just pure creative fire. A '69 Camaro resurrected from a scrapyard, a forgotten farm truck brought back to life, dents and all. A Firebird reimagined like it had been pulled from a comic book. Each build had its own soul, and under Chad's hands, they all sang. But while the world applauded, inside the shop, the pressure was mounting. Behind every camera angle was exhaustion. Behind every triumphant engine roar was a deadline. Behind every smile was a storm quietly building. Because with fame comes friction. The shop was never built to be a TV set. But now it had lights, deadlines, and producers pacing behind the scenes. What began as an authentic expression of passion was slowly being restructured into production schedules, brand expectations, and marketing deals. They were still building cars. But now, they were also building a show, and it was starting to wear on them. But even as the cracks formed behind the curtain, the magic on-screen kept growing. By season 2, Bad Chad Customs had gone international. Fans in Europe, Asia, and across North America knew the name. The small Nova Scotian garage had turned into a beacon for car lovers everywhere, and the projects, they only got bigger, wilder, riskier. Each episode became a test. Could they push the limits further? Could they top the last build? Could they keep pretending the pressure wasn't eating them alive? Because what no one on the outside could see was that something unseen was closing in, a force that wouldn't just pause the show. It would unravel it. At the peak of their success, just as season 3 was about to begin, something happened that none of them could control. Something that would bring their world to a halt. And the worst part, it wouldn't come from within. It would come from outside, far outside. The countdown to disaster had already begun. It started as background noise, a whisper in the news, a headline from a place far away. But then the whisper turned into a siren. The world was changing, fast, and no one, not even a backroad garage in Nova Scotia, could outrun what was coming. A global pandemic, the kind of crisis that stops time. And for Bad Chad Customs, that's exactly what it did. Season 3 was in motion. Scripts drafted, cameras prepped, projects lined up. But the world hit pause, and so did they. What began as a minor delay turned into an indefinite freeze. The workshop, hugely buzzing with tools and energy, fell quiet. The clatter of wrenches gave way to silence. No cameras, no deadlines. Just questions. Can we film safely? Can we survive this? Will we ever come back? Fans waited, unaware of how serious it had become. To them, it was just a break, a postponed season. But behind the scenes, something far more devastating was unfolding. TV networks started cutting budgets. Production companies hit the brakes. And small shows like Bad Chad Customs, the ones with heart but not giant corporate backing, became easy casualties. Without filming, there was no revenue. Without revenue, there was no show. And just like that, it was over. No farewell, no finale. Just silence. The dream that had started with a welding torch and a wild idea was now a victim of something they never saw coming. But the loss wasn't just professional. For Chad and Jolene, this wasn't just about ratings or reach. It was personal. Deeply, they'd poured their soul into every episode, shared their real lives, their real work, their real love. And now, it was gone. And yet, that wasn't even the worst part, because while the show died quietly, off camera, the impact didn't stop there. Supply chains froze. Parts stopped arriving. Local support businesses shuttered. The shop, the lifeblood of their entire world, was fighting to stay alive. They tried to hold on. Chad posted updates. Jolene reassured fans. They filmed small clips, masked, cautious, tired. But every day felt heavier, and every decision became harder. Should we wait? Should we quit? Is this really the end? For a long time, there were no answers. Only this heavy truth. Bad Chad Customs wasn't canceled by choice. It was suffocated by circumstance, and for the millions of fans watching, the silence was deafening when the official word finally came. It wasn't loud. There was no press conference, no final montage, no goodbye, just a sentence, a message. Season 3 wasn't happening. Bad Chad Customs was done, and fans, they were stunned. Online forums flooded with questions. Is it canceled? Will they be back? Why would Discovery end something this real? But no one had answers. Not right away, because this wasn't just a business decision. It was a heartbreak. Not just for viewers, but for Chad and Jolene. To the outside world, it may have looked like a pause, but inside the shop, it felt like a funeral. Chad wasn't just losing a show, a platform. A dream-built one, well at a time, and Jolene who had balanced the chaos, the schedules. The stress was now left to help shoulder the emotional debris. They'd built something rare, honest, messy, beautiful, and now was gone. Not because they failed, but because the world shut down around them. For weeks, then months, the shop was eerily quiet. No film crews, no deadlines, no reason to push to the brink every day. And yet, the passion didn't leave. You can cancel a show. You can silence a camera. But you can't turn off what drives a builder to breathe life into metal. In that silence, Chad picked up his tools again, not for TV, not for deadlines, but for himself. The shop didn't die. It just changed. Social media became their new canvas. A cell phone replaced the camera crew. Raw, unfiltered clips replaced glossy edits. And through it all, the fans stayed. Loyal, curious, hopeful. There was something poetic about it. The very thing that had once launched them authentic, low-budget, hands-on storytelling was now the lifeline that kept them going. They didn't need a network anymore. They had something stronger. A community in the ashes of the cancellation. Something unexpected began to grow without the network, without the crew, without the pressure. It was just Chad, Jolene, and a camera phone. What started as a few raw clips-gritty welding shots. Time-lapse builds, behind-the-scenes glimpses quickly caught fire. The same fans who once tuned into cable were now scrolling, watching, sharing, and something strange happened. The audience didn't shrink. It grew. One video became 10. 10 became 100. The garage became a digital stage. YouTube, Facebook, Instagram, one post at a time. The legacy of Bad Chad Customs refused to die. Chad didn't change who he was. He didn't need to. The mohawk was still there. The grit, the vision. Only now there were no producers calling the shots. They didn't need to ask for approval. Didn't need to fit episodes into 22-minute formats. Didn't need to polish the rough edges that made them real in the first place. They were finally free, and fans felt that. Because now they weren't just watching a show. They were watching a life unfold in real time. Live Q&As, build-alongs, shop tours. It wasn't just content. It was connection. Jolene became more than a co-star. She was now the heart of the brand's operations, managing content, fan engagement, merchandise, logistics, together. They turned the pain of cancellation into the engine of reinvention. What they lost in television polish, they gained in intimacy. Direct fan support, ad revenue, sponsorships that actually aligned with their values. No middleman, no filter. And the shop, it roared back to life. The same metal-on-metal symphony. The same magic from the early days. only now. There were no deadlines, only passion. It wasn't just a comeback. It was a reinvention, a blueprint for surviving the unthinkable. While other shows faded into rerun purgatory, Bad Chad Customs did something rare. It adapted, organically, boldly, quietly. The shop that once answered 2 network timelines now answered only to its audience. And that audience? It wasn't passive anymore. They didn't just watch. They participated. They suggested builds. They shared stories. They wore the merch like a badge of honor. Hats, tees, stickers. The Bad Chad Customs logo started popping up in unexpected places. From car meets in the US to garages in Europe, it was no longer just a Nova Scotia brand. It was global, grassroots, and growing, because what Chad and Jolene had created wasn't a TV show. Not really. It was a philosophy. A way of doing things when everyone says you can single quotes, build with what you've got. Dream bigger than your circumstances. And when the world closes the door, weld it back open. That message resonated far beyond gearheads. It spoke to creators, dreamers, rebels, people who'd been told that'll never work. People who watched Chad bend Meadowland saw a reflection of themselves. And so the channel grew. The following grew. The builds continued. But something had shifted. Chad no longer needed to impress producers. He only needed to stay true to the reason he started in the first place. And that purity, that defiance became the soul of this new chapter. They weren't just filming builds. They were building legacy in a world that moves fast, forgets fast, and cancels faster. Chad and Jolene proved that soul still matters. That grit still matters. That the underdog still wins. They refused to quit. Years from now, people may not remember the exact date the show was canceled. They may not recall which episode aired last, but they'll remember the feeling, the spark, the defiance, the why behind it all. Because Bad Chad Customs was never really about the cars. Not entirely. It was about rebuilding from ruins. About turning rust into glory. About crafting something beautiful not in spite of imperfections, but because of them. And when the world tried to silence that story, Chad and Jolene simply changed the channel. Not out of revenge, not out of ego, but because they still had more to say, more to build, more to share. More life to give to this thing. They started in a cold Nova Scotian garage with nothing but hope and a grinder. The internet didn't just give them back an audience. It gave them something even more valuable: control. Control of their message. Control of their work. Control of their future. No more compromises. No more gatekeepers. No more waiting for green lights and the fans. They didn't just come back. They multiplied, because something about watching 2 people refuse to be broken. It's powerful, unforgettable, in the noise of mass-produced content and cookie-cutter reality shows. Bad Chad Customs stood out for one reason. It was real, raw, unpolished, human. And in a strange way, the tragedy that ended the show became the very thing that set them free. Today, there's no red carpet, no season premieres, no scripted drama, just the sound of metal on metal. The steady rhythm of a man building something with his hands, and a woman behind the scenes holding it all together. The cameras may be gone, but the story still unfolding. Because Bad Chad Customs didn't die. It transformed what began as a small-town dream, a garage, a gamble, became a global movement powered by resilience, creativity, and the refusal to quit. There's something hauntingly beautiful about that a tragedy so quiet, so brutal could have ended everything. But instead, birthed something louder, something stronger, something real. So maybe the real story isn't about how Bad Chad Customs ended. Maybe it's about how it survived, how it adapted, how it spoke to the underdogs, the rebels, the creators, and how When the world said no, Chad and Jolene picked up a wrench and built their own dam. Yes, they don't need the spotlight. They never did. They've got something better. A legacy written in rust, chrome, sweat, and soul. And if you drive past that little shop on Highway 358, you'll still hear the sound of dreams being welded, one spark at a time. Because the truth is, Bad Chad Customs was never just a TV show. It was a heartbeat, and it's still beating.